Well, here we go again. So I want to take a moment to take a look at that fucking freak show known as the mainstream media and its viral influence over the mindless drones and masses that don't have the time or want to consider what's being said or what they repeat as fact. There's obviously a machine at work here in the mainstream media. Each network and the so called news source are really a constituent component of the whole with a unified purpose. The mainstream media's biased narrative is so clear and so organized, anyone with a basic understanding of the English language can grasp it. Yet, I find it odd that we have millions throughout the world who buy into this spoon fed pseudo news as if it were like the word of a messiah. Their mantra has become their religion. And the sad part is that to some extent, it's working. It's working against Trump and that he's reacting, and really rightfully so if we take a moment to look at all the attacks against him. But his reactions offer the left mainstream media more ammunition against him, or at least really more room to speculate. Let's take a look here at a moment at some of the recent articles and reports on him, and picture if you were in his position and consider how you would react if everything about you was reported negatively. Not only is it working against Trump, but it's also working against some of the general public. Even though at least half of the US still approves of President Trump, we can see some of those numbers in minor decline. Really, enough negative coverage and enough negative things said, and it'll eventually take its toll on even the best people or ideas. And I'm not saying that Trump's like a great person, but he's had some pretty good ideas. Their viral infection of everything they touch makes it difficult to find truth. In my opinion, based on research and observation, the far left mainstream media have poisoned the well so badly that even fair and balanced individuals and organizations at times are influenced by them. You know, with me doing research for this video, I spent countless hours fact checking, the information and sources. Really, most people don't have time for this. The left mainstream media is acting like some deranged child suffering from psychopathy who didn't get its way. Their arrogance and extreme egocentricity is not only damaging to themselves, but to the public as well. And they're creating chasms between people from differing political views, races, and cultures. A divisive wedge is being forced into the masses. And with the exception of some of the YouTubers here and the brave people behind them and the efforts of some of the fringe media sources, there's really very little being done. And I say brave because, as we've seen recently with Felix, PewDiePie, the mainstream media will go after anyone who threatens their empire. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have YouTube. Google's proposing some forms of censorship. And it's a never ending cycle of just insanity because they don't want anything that opposes their views. In the media's perverse universe, they're justified in attacks, half truths, and outright lies to further their agenda. Many articles and reports are labeled as op eds, and really it's a fact many miss, and just so they can have the liberty to smear at will. The dishonesty, lack of integrity, and clear agenda driven reporting has paved the way for hardships for not only people in the US, but our image throughout the world. If you've been following me at all or seen some of my videos, you'll see one where I analyze Phil Mason, aka Thunderfoot, and his statements on the election and the Trump presidency. And I really hate to target him again, but I have to bring him up here because some of his recent activity on Twitter, and he's a good example of how the far left mainstream media influences the opinion of people all over the world. In following Mr. Phil, I see that on Twitter he often cites far left leaning news organizations and late night television programs to support his argument. Now, while to me it's pretty obvious the news is super skewed and that really most late night television programs are not only comedy but a product of the socialist utopia movement, people who do not reside in the US may not be aware of what is otherwise obvious bias. Here's an educated man of science that has been fooled into believing the mainstream media and comedy shows. Granted, he's so left wing to the point of being completely unobjective that the idea of Trump failing appeals to him, but it does raise a good question. What chance do lesser informed people or persons too busy to fact check have when inundated with a barrage of negative commentary? The far left is so damn afraid of counter arguments that they either filter or completely disable comments on their sites. They name call, they use every underhanded tactic to not only dismiss their opposition, but they attempt to annihilate them. And really, to what ends? The media has painted Trump to be a racist, a Nazi, homophobic, misogynistic, xenophobic, a liar, and many other horrible descriptions. We have people actually claiming that he tried to do a Muslim ban and legal Hispanics being afraid of deportation. We've got high school to college students believing Trump's an actual neo-Nazi. The list really goes on and on. It's no wonder Trump was very selective recently regarding the media invites. Can we really blame him? It reminds me of a work or like high school rumor mill where someone would start a rumor and people would repeat it, and with each retelling they'd exaggerate it a little more. And at first people really don't believe it. But after hearing it so many times it becomes true to them. They become reinforced by the very bullshit they spread in the first place. It's circular logic at its finest. There's no need for a lifelong study in social epidemiology to understand the connections here. This is SJW logic started by media morons. The true root of the problem for decades has been the left agenda and those in the media that attempt to brainwash the masses. Their agenda is in large part responsible for, among many things, identity politics, the recent Antifa movements, social justice warriors in general, the erosion of values, and the immeasurable senseless laws that get passed that affect our daily life. Things that federal, state, and local government should have no control of. And how? The media gets people focused on subjects that they try to influence thought and actions on. And remember, many people don't take the time to consider the implications of blind belief. And if you doubt it, just look at the Facebook experiment, and I'll put a link in the description below. It's pretty scary stuff. So I want to take a closer look at some of the information that make people like our good old buddy Dr. Phil go full on retard. Thunderf00t tweeted and linked to an article by the far left outlet Think Progress. It was titled, "Trump Broke 64 Promises in His First Month in Office." I want to address a few of the items on that list, and I'm going to link to the article for your reading pleasure. But before I go over it, I want to reiterate that I don't believe Trump's infallible, and he's had some missteps. But my goal here is to point out the manipulation of information the media uses to convince themselves and others that Trump is the devil incarnate himself. So let's have a little fun here. Trump broke 64 promises. Okay. I'm not going to read the entire thing because I don't want to make the video insanely long. It's already going to be a little longer than I was hoping for. So we'll get down to where they're claiming he broke promises. Trump has broken 30 promises since his first day in office, when he broke 34 promises and kept 2. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by this because at the top it said 64 promises, and here it's saying 30, but he broke 34 and kept 2. The math doesn't add up in any way. I don't know. I'm not going to try to spend a lot of time figuring out the mainstream media's math figures. They're so good at skewing math and statistics to swing in their favor. Okay, so if anyone can figure this out, just put it in comments below. I'm not spending any more time on that. So first promise here. Trump promised not to close borders through executive orders. Skipping through Trump's exact quote, we'll go to what they're saying about the quote, which Trump has issued several executive orders directed to the borders of the United States. Now, before doing this video, I went ahead and clicked some of these links so I could get some information. And when you click these, one takes you to the so-called Muslim ban, the other one's talking about illegal immigration, and the last one's talking about the Department of Homeland Security report. So, first and foremost, we all know it's not a Muslim ban. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time talking about what so many people have dissected far better than I could. All I will say is it's not a Muslim ban. I'll reiterate this. When we are restricting travel from a handful of countries, of people from areas that are suspected or have known terrorist ties, it's not a bad thing. If every time I opened my door somebody was going to punch me in the face, I'd probably not open the door to them. Or if it was common that they'd punch me in the face, I still wouldn't open the door. So even if there's a risk to it. And as far as the illegal immigration, as far as I know, we're one of the very few countries in the world that are very lax on illegals being in our country. A lot of places you would end up jailed and deported immediately. I don't know why everyone believes that the U.S. should just open its doors and say, come on in. We're trillions in debt. We've got our own problems. Let's take on a slew of new problems. I'm going to call this first one a no-go. I don't think it's a broken campaign promise. I've got a friend of mine coming in from overseas, and I've got another one leaving next week. They are having no passport or visa issues, so I'm going to assume it's still pretty open. Trump promised to replace Obamacare immediately after we go in. Immediately. There's a word game for you. Trump supporters are waiting for this promised immediate replacement of the Affordable Care Act, and we'll have to wait until 2018. The president admitted this month. Okay, so he's taken some immediate action and setting some realistic deadlines. Again, if he failed to act at all, and if after 4 years we still have Obamacare, I'm going to say that's a failed campaign promise. I don't know what this particular outlet thinks that immediate means, but I'd say anything within the first year of presidency is pretty immediate. That's breakneck speed when compared to other administrations. So Trump promised to immediately terminate Obama's 2 illegal executive amnesties. Okay, has he said he's not going to do it? As of this writing, Trump is yet to terminate or rescind the Obama's executive amnesties on immigration. Okay, so he's yet to do it. So, no. I mean, this is obviously not something he's failed to do. He's not done it yet. Again, if he leaves office and this never happens, then it's a failed promise. Trump promised to ask Congress to convene a special session to repeal and replace Obamacare. Okay, isn't that the same as number 1? Or, number 2, I guess? Yeah, that's number 2. So another clear tactic of the far-left mainstream media is to take the bullet points from any one subject and make those bullet points brand new subjects. More word games, more molesting language to fit their narrative. It's a beautiful thing. Free speech is a double-edged sword without doubt. Okay. So let's go down a little further. Yeah, conservatives are starting to notice. Starting to. Yeah. He's been in office a little over a month. Give him a chance. Trump promised to create reforms so that for every new regulation, 2 old regulations are eliminated. I guess it's supposed to be are eliminated. I don't know. While some media outlets gave Trump credit for fulfilling this promise, he actually broke it. It does not actually require that 2 regulations actually, how many times is it going to use the word actually, be repealed? That's the vehemence of somebody blinded by their own mission here. Only that agency heads identify at least 2 prior regulations for elimination. Semantics. So he's asking them to identify things to be eliminated so new regulations can take place. Where's this a broken campaign promise? No, that's not a broken campaign promise at all. Trump promised to instruct Treasury. Let me try this in English. Trump promised to instruct Treasury Secretary to label China a currency manipulator and apply tariffs. Let's see. Treasury Secretary said on Thursday that we're not making any judgments at this time when he asked about. Oh, so we're going to pick on Trump for being prudent. And if you're following his presidency at all, you'll see that he's actually been in talks with China. So maybe those talks have led to things. I'm not going to try to defend everything he's done. Like I said, he's had missteps, but if he makes an assertion at a time in the information he has, and then after meeting with China, for example, that information changes, I think that's actually a good president to take new information instead of just be so resolute in what he believes and becoming a blind believer himself. That sounds pretty good. I don't know. I mean, do we? No, I don't think I've found anything on this list so far that I can say is a broken campaign promise. Trump promised to protect religious liberty. Let's see. Okay, again, they're calling back to the Muslims. They're going to the bullet points of previous points to make it look like new points. And they're saying that. So Trump, as a candidate, called for a total ban on Muslims entering the United States, even though he subsequently walked that position back. His administration has attempted through executive order to implement a travel ban that is reportedly the best way for Trump to ban Muslims legally. His administration has promised to both fight current legal challenges facing the ban and introduce a revised order to avoid judicial scrutiny. He also declined in 3 separate occasions in 1 week to denounce anti-Semitism. Oh my God. These people are batshit crazy. And the sad part about it is I'm bringing this video up because Thunderfoot in his Twitter linked to it, like I said, and this is the kind of information people are using to support their arguments against Trump. It's delusional at best. Oh. This is nice. Trump promised to approve the Keystone Pipeline and make a deal for 25% of the profits in 2 minutes. I want like 25% of the profits. It's important that we look at actually what Trump said here. So he's saying, I'll get them into my office. They'll give me whatever I want in about 2 minutes. So their argument is Trump signed an executive memorandum asking TransCanada to resubmit its application for the tar sands oil pipeline. But it will take much longer than the time frame he described to approve it, much less winning a deal with a 25%. Okay, it hasn't even happened yet. How do we know what percent he's going to get unless it happens? And I think this is where we're nitpicking what somebody's saying. I'll get him into my office and they'll give me whatever I want in about 2 minutes. Okay, so we can agree on something. I've owned businesses before, and I've made really good deals in a very short amount of time. Walk in, handshake. But there's a lot of other things involved. So the parties agree. We've got accounting to get involved. We've got approval, sometimes permits. I don't think he was saying that it would be done and built in 2 minutes. I don't think that's at all. So I don't call that a broken campaign promise. Again, if it never happens, it's broken. Trump promised to protect Muslims from profiling. Later in the campaign, Trump said that racial profiling is something that we're going to have to start thinking about as a country. During the transition, a Trump policy advisor recommended that the incoming administration could adopt a registry see their choice of word, targeting Muslim immigrants. Another surrogate cited that Japanese internment camps for World War II as a precedent for such a registry. The Trump administration wants the Department of Homeland Security to focus less on white supremacists and more on Islamic extremism. Rex Tillerson, before he was confirmed as Secretary of State, would not rule out a Muslim registry when asked about it during his confirmation hearings. There is a multitude of problems with this. Okay, so if you have an apartment complex next door to your house, and let's say you're unfortunate and you've got an apartment complex next door to your house, not that apartments are bad, but it's more traffic and everything else like that. So let's say shortly after that apartment complex was built, you start noticing that you're missing things out of your house on an almost regular basis. Let's say video indicates that the people coming back and forth are coming from the apartments, from your house, even though you can't identify any one person. Is it reasonable to say, I'm going to watch the whole apartment complex until an individual shows otherwise? I need to keep an eye. I don't think that's racist. I don't think that's out of line. I No, I mean that's not profiling. Saying you're no, that's not profiling. That's another one. It's not a broken campaign promise. I'd like to hear an argument saying it is. I mean, a legitimate argument. I love how they want to include focus less on white supremacy. White supremacy is not an issue. I do not know anybody that's white. I personally don't know that sits there and goes, "Oh my God, there's a such and such." And I don't. I don't. It just doesn't exist in that way. There are, yes, white supremacist groups, but most people are reasonable. Most. Trump promised a death penalty for cop killers by executive order. Trump's executive order signed February 9th does not mention the death penalty, though it does direct the Justice Department to prosecute crimes against police officers and pursue legislation that makes such attacks a federal crime. Even though 538 noted, who the hell's 538? Noted that some, I love the emphasis on some here, former police officers doubted the order's efficacy. Still, Trump did not and could not issue the executive order he promised to issue. Again, we're talking about a president who's taken action on one of his positions, maybe new. I'm not going to defend it. I am going to say that if he's taken some action, I'm not for the death penalty anyways, so I'm fine with that. Death penalties, I don't like the idea of our government killing people. I don't know. Outside of the realm of a combat situation where it's without doubt justified to save people in your unit or save others' lives in general. So, yeah, again, that's not a broken. He took action. He got new information. Maybe there's limitations to the power. It's what the system's for. Oh, Trump promised to tell the Department of Commerce to immediately review foreign trade practices that hurt the American worker. Trump has issued no executive order or memo about this, and there are no public statements signifying he has told the Commerce Department to do this. There's, again, yet, and we don't know that he didn't pick up a telephone and make a phone call to a department head and said, "Here, do this." Just because there's no memo. I mean, come on, really? This is absolute lunacy. Trump promised to make policy decisions transparent. I'm not going to get into all that. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I think he's been relatively transparent. Probably less so that the media is cramming everything he says down his own throat, or trying to, anyways. Trump promised to rarely leave the White House and not take a vacation. Oh, holy shit. He took 3 weekends in a row. And sometimes long. Impeach his ass. How dare he go down for a weekend? Rarely leave. Isn't that over the presidency? The entire come on. Give me a break. Trump promised to have great negotiators for diplomats, not nice people who gave political contributions. Trump picked a big political donor to be the ambassador to the United Kingdom. Context, people, context. Was he the best person for the job? He just says he's going to have great negotiators for diplomats. The guy is a New York Jets owner. He's probably a good negotiator. Anybody that gets in that kind of position, making the kind of money to buy a pro ball team, they probably know how to negotiate. Maybe he was the best person for the job. I don't know him. I don't know enough about it. I don't think that's a broken campaign promise, though. Trump promised to apologize if wrong. Yeah, probably not going to happen. He's got a pretty big ego. I'll give him that one. So they got one out of all these. Trump promised that his kids won't do business deals during his term in office. Presidency too much on donor plus will manage them. No new deals will be done during my terms in office. Trump promised. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe, but we're back on his tax returns again. Oh, so it's impossible to know what deals Trump's business actually have in place. So we're going to call it a broken campaign promise. Oh, come on. Trump promised not to make crazy statements as president. Well, that's subjective. I mean, how do you hold someone to that kind of promise anyway? I like this one. Trump promised to set up a private trust where he doesn't know anything about his business. Trump agreed to place some of his assets into a trust, but it is not blind, secret, independent, nor private. He will receive a report. Oh my God, impeach him tomorrow. He's going to get a report. And that's a broken campaign promise. Trump promised not to settle a Trump University lawsuit. Was that a campaign issue? I mean, did he go around, I will not settle my... No, I think he was mouthing to the media. In November, Trump agreed to settle the case for $25 million. Is there a chance that maybe he just said, you know, this president thing's a pretty fucking rough job. Maybe I should just settle this and put it to bed. Back another point of Trump University. Did he ever campaign on Trump? I mean, do most people give a shit? Was this like a selling point? I don't know. I've got the contract for Donald Trump somewhere around here, and I don't remember seeing these bullet points in it. Trump settled a lawsuit, and he's not signaled any intention to restart the university. Well, what's that got to do with U.S. politics? What's that got to do with campaign promises? Trump promised to be so presidential you won't even recognize me. Okay, well, again, subjective. I think somebody standing firm on their positions and not afraid to tell the media to kiss his ass is pretty presidential. 1,000 years ago, a lot of people would have been beheaded. I mean, so it seems more... I mean that as a joke because I can't say the lesser of the evils is the more president. I mean, seriously, I mean, who judges that? Trump promised not to tweet anymore because it's not presidential. Yeah, I'll give him that one. He loves Twitter. Trump promised to cut ties. Back to his business again. He never said he was going to give up ownership. Trump still retains ownership. And he'll receive reports on their performance. Even if his sons were not running them. Come on. Give me a fucking break. Trump promised not to redecorate the White House. And the one thing they cite is that the drapes in the Oval Office. Come on. This is batshit crazy to a whole level that I haven't seen before. And I can't believe old Phil would cite this as saying, see what a liar this guy is? He put blinds up. Yeah, I'm sure he put some drapes and blinds. Recently, I watched a documentary about the process a president goes through. And there's some choices they have to make, including the carpet of Air Force One. We don't know that drapes aren't a part of it. I don't think anyone gives a shit. I don't even think he gives a shit. Bro, that's why people voted him in. Because they said, he's not going to change the White House at all. Yeah, we voted for that. Okay? Trump promised not to dodge questions. Again, we've got like a power-mad media that's completely agenda-driven, will molest anything that he says, so I can't really blame him there. Trump promised to always tell the truth. Trump and his administration lied at least 40 times in the first 3 weeks of his presidency. And some of the things that they're calling lies is some of the things that like some of the things that had been reported to him that he had said, I don't know. He doesn't strike me as a liar because he doesn't strike me as someone who gives a shit enough to lie. I mean, you have to actually care about the repercussions of your actions to want to lie about it. He seems pretty ego-driven, and most people with a huge ego don't like to lie. Usually, I mean, it's pretty typical because they're they're so confident in their own actions. So I'd really have to look at that and see. I haven't given that any research. Maybe that's a future video. Trump promised back to his business again. Give me a fucking break on the business here. Trump promised to hand over his business again in the business. Bullet points to the business. So I really should have counted which ones are actually and see what the real count is. Well, of course, at the beginning, it doesn't look like they even know their math. So I'm not going to go through all of these. If you guys are interested, you could find the link in the description and go through this. But I mean, this is absolutely batshit crazy. And people are using these arguments to say he's not doing what he said he was going to do. And they can nitpick calling things what they aren't and bitch about drapes. I mean, if that's all the problems that they've got with our president, maybe they should take a second look at their positions. And really, that's all I've got to say on this subject. So, one other news before I close out here. I've been following another YouTuber by the name of Lady Machiavelli, and she's doing some really cool things. You get a chance, check her out, support her channel. As always, you'll find the links to the usual suspects I follow on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. And as of recent, I'm on minds.com, and I'm liking it. So far, they seem to value free speech, so let's hope that continues. There's pretty much most of who I follow in my description list there is on Minds. So check them out. And if you like it, head over there and see what they have to offer. Well, until next time.